How can I avoid getting injured while I'm at basic training? So this is a pretty interesting video topic idea for me that I really hope you guys take into consideration, especially if you have a long time until you leave for training. Maybe you're not leaving until next summer or next spring or something like that. I hope you guys take this video into consideration. In this video, I'm going to cover some of my personal experiences and things that I've seen while in training, and specifically at basic training, because that's where the majority of the injuries that I've came across in my career have occurred. And I want to talk to you guys about the reason, or a possible reason, why these soldiers got injured and how they could have avoided it. And it's fairly simple. So when you're going to basic training, you're going to be doing all this kind of rigorous activity. You're going to be walking everywhere, you're going to be rucking everywhere, you're going to be jumping up and down and doing push-ups, and you're going to be hurting and everything. And at some point in time, you might get hurt. So how can you avoid that injury, and what kind of injuries am I even talking about? Because an injury could be pretty much anything. When you're at basic training, there's this place called sick call, where you can go in the morning at usually around 4 in the morning. You go there and it's basically the doctor's office, and you get checked up on. So if you twisted your ankle or whatever, you go to sick call and you're going to get checked up on. The literal biggest reason that people go to sick call is for blisters on their feet. It's because their feet are being torn apart by the boots. Now, when you go into the Army, the boots that they issue you at the beginning of basic training are going to be very stiff. They're going to be very rough and kind of feel like sanding paper on your heels or on your feet, because they're just super duper rough whenever you don't break them in, and it takes a couple weeks to break them in. So at the very beginning of basic training, a lot of people have blisters on their feet like crazy, especially when we go on ruck marches. People will have their feet will literally bleed through their boots. And to me, it hasn't happened to me where I've had to bleed through my boots, but I've seen it happen to people, and they finish the ruck march. Every single time these people have finished ruck marches with their feet bleeding through the boots, and you can see the blood, and it's just kind of crazy to me. But why is this happening? Why are some people's feet not getting messed up whenever other people's feet are? So there's two main reasons for this. Number one is you got the wrong boot size. So whenever you went to reception and they issued you your boots, you either got a boot that was too small or you got a boot that was too big. If the boot is too big, then what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of space for your foot to just rub up against the back of the boot, which is the hardest part, which is the part that feels like sandpaper if you're rubbing it up against each other. So a lot of these, where your foot's just rubbing every single step, when you're walking for miles and miles, that adds up and your feet start bleeding. You get really bad blisters. So that's what happens if your boot is too big. If your boot is too small, then your toes are going to be pushing up against the front of the boot, which is also very uncomfortable. And that's how people get blisters on their toes, and they get the skin rubbed off on their toes. Like, skin will literally be rubbed off because, like, when you're at basic training, you can't just be like, oh, I want to stop my feet hurt. You kind of just got to keep pushing through it, and then at the end, then you can get help if you need to, or the next morning you go to sick call. So if your boot's too small, if your boot's too big, you're going to have some issues. So you really want to make sure that you have the right boot size whenever you get to reception. You get issued your boot, you try it on. They will let you try on your boot, and they'll tell you how it feels, or they're going to ask you how it feels. Make sure that it fits really good, okay? The next reason that people will have these feet issues, all these foot-related issues with their boots, is because they haven't really done anything physically active at all. So I would say 90% of the people that have an issue with their feet at basic training, not only just because they got the wrong boot size, which isn't as common as you might think, it's because before basic training they never did anything. They basically just went to basic training hoping that was going to get them in shape, but they didn't realize that the more you get your body in shape before basic training, like I've said a bajillion times, the better your quality of life is going to be at basic training, and that includes your feet quality of life. I don't know what word I should use there, but basically, when you're running on your own, when you're running a couple miles a day, when you're running, 10 plus miles a week, your feet are getting conditioned. They're getting some calluses on them. They're getting roughed up a little bit, and they're going to be a little bit more resistant to the boots than somebody who doesn't ever run, right? So if you don't ever run, your feet are going to be soft. They're not going to be used to running all the time. They're not going to be used to walking everywhere. They're just going to be used to you basically sitting around doing casual activities, going to the mall, wearing nice, soft, cushiony, shoes. They're going to be used to that. So you need to condition your feet before basic training to be in shape for the boots. So basically, not even just for yourself to be in shape for running, but if you want to help ensure that your feet aren't going to be as tortured as possible, make sure you run before basic training as long as you can before basic training. That's why I said that if you guys are leaving out in next spring, next summer, if you don't hike right now, if you don't run right now, your feet are going to be soft when you leave, and you might have an issue. I mean, you will have an issue at basic training with your boots giving you blisters. So I'm going to roll one of the next injuries into the way to fix it, which was running a lot before basic training, and that is basically shin splints or just issues with running in general. A lot of people, when they get to basic training, like I said, they haven't done any running before. Like, they maybe ran a mile a month. They just basically, for the most part, never really ran. When you get to basic training, you're going to be walking everywhere, you're going to be ruck marching everywhere, and you're going to be running multiple times a week, right? And you could be running when you're getting smoked, and you're going to be wearing these boots, and you're going to be running in the boots. So a lot of people are just not used to that kind of activity, and therefore they get shin splints, they get knee issues, they get certain issues just because their body is shocked, and their body's just like, what the heck, I cannot do this right now. Your shin splints are going to give out. Your hips are going to start hurting. Your knees are going to start hurting. Your joints are going to hurt. And a lot of that is due to the fact that your body is just not conditioned for the training that you're going through right now. Now, you could be in good training. I'm not saying you have to be like a Olympic triathlon athlete or something like that. You just got to be doing some kind of activity, trying to, hopefully, preferably, if you're running 10 miles a week, then I think that's fantastic. But a lot of people don't do that. And a lot of times, those are the people that have the issues with shin splints. Those are the people that have issues with, like, their knees. Not even just because they have bad knees, but just because they're not used to the activities that they're going through. So the better you can prepare yourself physically, the less physical injuries you're going to have as far as the running goes. So I've got about 2 more injuries that I can think of while that can occur while you're at basic training. One of them is going to be when you're ruck marching. If your ruck sack is not properly packed, if it's not up as high as possible, you could be running into some back or some hip issues with that. So when you get to basic training, this isn't really something that you can fix or help before basic training. Maybe I might do some kind of like rucksack how to pack it video or something like that. I don't know. But when you get to basic training, make sure you ask your drill sergeant or ask somebody who knows how to set up a rucksack, how to get it as high as possible on the frame, how to get it as high as possible on your back, right? Because you don't want this thing sagging down on your back. You don't want it pulling your back backwards, making your spine, basically bend the wrong way whenever you're supposed to be kind of leaning forward a little bit. You don't want it to be pulling you back. So you could be running into some back issues with that, and also some hip issues. A lot of people get hip issues whenever they are ruck marching, and that's basically due to, like, number one, just the stress of ruck marching, and that could be due to the fact that they weren't physically prepared. But the ruck and the way it's situated, making sure everything is compact and it's not all just sloshing around, that is really going to help with some of the strains and some of the soreness and some of the issues that ruck marching is going to give you when you're at basic training. So make sure when you get to basic, you pack your ruck as tight as possible, and you put it up as high on your frame as possible so you can get it resting on your shoulders as much as possible. So one of the biggest injuries that happens at basic training is just like a twisted ankle, a twisted knee, or just something like that happens whenever you're walking. So you do a lot of walking in the Army, you'll be rucking everywhere, you'll be running different places, and you're not always running or walking on level ground. You could be running up a hill. You could be ruck marching on some like rocks or whatever, and there could be like a pothole there. Well, it happens pretty much every single ruck march that somebody is going to trip or somebody is going to fall into like a little pothole. They're going to twist their ankle. You're going to be walking beside the road and you're just not going to see something and you're just going to twist your ankle. That's a huge injury that happens at basic training. So basically the way you can avoid it is just to make sure you're watching where you're walking. I know it kind of sounds stupid to say, but you kind of got to say it because it just happens so often. I don't understand how some people it happens to them, because like people in front of them will be avoiding the obstacle, but they will end up hitting it and hurting themselves. So that's kind of interesting to me. But when you're doing your ruck marches, when you're going places, a lot of times it's super dark. Whenever you're doing land nav, it's really dark. Just make sure that you're conscious and aware of the fact that you could at any moment essentially trip, and you need to just be ready. You need to, make sure that you're not running into anything or stepping on something that could cause your ankle to twist. So make sure you do that, and you shouldn't have any issues with that. So as you can see, in my personal point of view, I think that a lot of injuries that occur at basic training can be avoided due to properly preparing your body for basic training, because you're going to be doing all this strenuous activity. If your body's not ready for it, you could get hurt. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hitting that like button would be awesome. If you have any questions or concerns or anything in general, leave those comments down below. If you want to subscribe and stick around for some more of my videos, that would be awesome. And I will see you guys later.